that light has exposed some dark truths about Canada's so-called investigation against India. Remember, Canada accused India of killing Khalistani terrorist Nijjar on Canadian soil, as also of carrying out a series of criminal actions that undermines, according to the Canadian government, the country's territorial integrity. A few days ago, Trudeau metaphorically shot himself in the foot by admitting that he gave only intelligence and no, quote, hard evidentiary proof, unquote, linking the Indian government agents to the killing of Khalistan separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar last year. Now, today, Canada has once again upended its own case, seemingly with another stunning admission. Two senior officials of the Justin Trudeau-led government have confessed to leaking or planting intelligence and sensitive information against India to the Washington Post, which is an American newspaper, even before the Canadian police or the Canadian people could get the information for themselves. In fact, this vital bit of information was planted on the Washington Post even before the police, the Canadian police, could complete their probe into the murder of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. At least that's what we're getting to hear from Canadian media viewers. Deputy Foreign Minister David Morrison told a parliamentary panel, and those pictures are there on your screens where the depositions are taking place, that a top-ranking official in Prime Minister Narendra Modi-led government was behind the plots to attack Sikh separatists in Canada. But he admitted that he gave this information first to the Washington Post. As if that wasn't bad enough, Canada's National Security Advisor confessed that the leak was part of a, quote, communications strategy, unquote. This essentially confirms what India has been saying, that Trudeau's government wanted to leverage the heft of a leading newspaper brand to make its, quote, thin on facts, unquote, probe look more credible than it really was. Listen to the admission first yourself, viewers, before we unpack this story further.
Were part of that conversation with the Washington Post, is that correct?
Correct.
Correct, and you felt that those details were not sensitive and would not jeopardize any investigation?
So maybe I can share two things. So the information we shared with the journalists over there were not classified. I would like also, and the job of journalists, and maybe better than I do, but journalists have also separate sources. That's something that has to be said. As I said also in my opening remarks, this is someone who has followed India's stories many times. And the information that was disclosed in the Washington Post, I think, are also available elsewhere.
You can confirm then that the information about, for example, the Indian Home Affairs Minister and his alleged involvement in these crimes in Canada, that was not released in Canada, however. Can you confirm that? That was only released in the Washington Post, pardon me.
So this is not an information we provided to the journalists.
Pardon me, it was not information you provided?
No.
Who provided that information then to the journalist? You're not sure? But that was not yourself who provided that information, was it?
We did not.
Mr. Morrison, can you comment? Did you provide
Sure.
that information?
The journalist called me and asked me if it was that person. I confirmed it was that person.
Well, there's more to this conversation, viewers, and it reveals, because the person who's conducting the panel inquiry will come back to Nathalie Druin and ask her follow-up questions, where she elaborates that this information was provided, as I told you, viewers, to basically add a certain degree of context, and that this particular information was part of a communication strategy. Now, as revealed at the top of the show, this admission follows Trudeau's own confession before the same panel that his government gave only intel and no, quote, evidentiary proof, unquote, to India, but still expected India to own up to its actions. Listen in to what Justin Trudeau said a few days ago, viewers.
We chose to continue to work behind the scenes to try and get India to cooperate with us. Their asks of us was, well, how much do you know? Give us the evidence you have on this. And our response was, well, it's within your security agencies. You should be looking into how much they know. You should be engaging. It's, oh, no, tell us what you know. Show us the evidence. And at that point, it was primarily intelligence, not hard evidentiary proof. So we said, well, let's work together and look into your security services and maybe we can get that done. No, we're not doing that.
Well, clearly with each passing day, new details emerge that suggest that Trudeau, by admitting to planting stories against India as part of a communication strategy, that at fundamentally, viewers, there is a disconnect. Each passing day, new details are emerging that suggest that the Trudeau government is trying very hard to paint India into a corner, viewers. And all of this raises some questions. And those questions are on your screens, viewers. And this is important in the context of what has actually transpired. By admitting to planting stories against India as part of a, quote, communications strategy, unquote, hasn't Trudeau's government dented the credibility of its own probe? Question 2, does the admission underline India's charge that the Trudeau government's allegations are born out of political expediency than any regard for probity? Did Trudeau government leak to a foreign newspaper first because it wanted to insulate itself against scrutiny at home? There are several questions, viewers, but these three stand out, and let's ask them of our panel. We have guests from the United States, from Canada, and of course, Dr. Anand Ranganathan here with us. Let me first begin with Daniel Boardman and ask him simply this. Contextualize what has just transpired.
Oh, in general, listen, this is sort of par for the course for Justin Trudeau. You outlined it. Many things in Canada under the Trudeau administration have been directed from the Prime Minister's office, and all agencies of government, including our security apparatuses, have shown to, in some way, bow down to the wills of the PMO. You saw this in the RCMP in the Nova Scotia shooting, where it was found that the RCMP was covering up information to go along with the narrative the Liberals wanted to spin on gun control. You saw this in the invocation of the Emergencies Act, where people's bank accounts were frozen with criminal records, where the RCMP and the CBC worked together to create fake stories where the CBC would create a list of concerns about extremism at the convoy. They would ask the RCMP about the concerns. The RCMP would say, "Oh yes, we're now that you brought it up, we'll look into it." Then the CBC would report that, "Oh, the RCMP is now looking into concerns," and then they would print the article, and then the RCMP would use the article printed by the CBC, which quoted the RCMP that there could be concerns, as proof that there might be concerns, and then sent that to the Prime Minister's office as evidence that we needed to invoke the Emergencies Act. So the RCMP and the Liberal Party have all shown to play politics that benefit the Prime Minister over the last 10 years. So that's a problem that Canada's been facing on a wide range of issues. Bring it to India here. That was one of the potential concerns I had brought up over a year ago, is even if this is 100% true, and the Indian government did stick its finger in a gang war in our country, and they convinced Malik's gang to knock off Nijjar or something of this sort. The problem has always been there are ideologies involved, and those in the PMO, where the PMO has this hardline ideology. It is very far left, social justice, blah 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 blah, all of that, and within the PMO's office, all those ideologies here in the West are linked to the Khalistanis, to the Muslim Brotherhood, to the CCP, and to the ISI. So is Trudeau fully compromised, or is he more of a useful idiot? These are the conversations that you can have. But we're seeing here, clearly, there is a direction from the Prime Minister's office, like there has been on a wide variety of serious issues, to downplay this or play it up to blame India more, because I don't believe for a second this man cares about foreign interference or the lives of Canadians. I had a friend in Richmond Hill, murdered by the IRGC, an actual hostile foreign terrorist organization that's listed. Not a finger was moved for Mehdi Amin. Same thing with Karima Bloch, thrown in the river, and she killed herself. She strangled herself to death, and then after she killed herself, she picked her dead body up and threw it in the river. Suicide. Right? This is the seriousness of that, and all of this was let to pass. The second worst terrorist attack in Canadian history, the downing of Flight PS-752, again by the IRGC. Trudeau immediately bows down to Javad Zarif and then starts to spit the regime line that, it was an accident, a tragedy. How could two missiles with guidance technology be launched at a civilian airline carrier? No one really knows, right? So there's always been a political slant. There's always been the specter of extremist ideologies in some way that have infiltrated the Liberal and the NDP, and you're seeing this play out. So might there be a kernel of truth in the fact that maybe did someone in the Indian government stick their fingers into a gang war here in Canada? Possibly. But that sort of kernel of truth has been broadened out to the most insane, wacky story where the RCMP is now contradicting itself, where they're saying, the Nijjar case had nothing to do with the wider case. And you see there that, we were trying to shape a narrative with the Washington Post, but it's criminals who are leaking things on Chinese interference, but we're leaking things on Indian foreign interference. It's all a cluster F-bomb, to use the inappropriate terminology here. And,
right.
And that's what's playing out on the global scale.
So look, thank you for actually putting this into a particular context. Clearly, you have an opinion, and that's the context in which you're situating this. Let me bring in Dean Baxendale, Dr. Ranganathan, and of course, Mr. Iyer Mitra here. Dean Baxendale, now, just taking off from where Mr. Boardman ended his long exposition, I have to ask you this. This business of planting stories against India as part of a communication strategy, quote, communication strategy, unquote. Hasn't the Trudeau government dented the credibility of its own probe? If you're trying to shape the narrative even before you take the Canadian people into confidence, it does suggest that this hasn't been handled professionally. And if it hasn't been handled professionally, what's the motive?
Well, it's I have to support Daniel on much of what he just espoused here on the station. I think it's rather, again, I always talk about the complexities and the nuances of the security apparatus as they are overlaid within the Prime Minister's office, which ultimately has control and direction over our CMP investigations. But what we have here also is a misinformation operation directed at U.S. media and ultimately to the Canadian public through the Washington Post, once again, to remove what should be really being focused on, is the CCP's infiltration operations in Canada and their influence here in Canada and election interference. However, the complexities of the gang war and the use of organized crime in the actual, deaths and murders of Canadians, this has been going on for decades. And to Daniel's point, we have not stepped into this fray and actually done anything or attempted to stop much of this diaspora transnational oppression operations by various governments. And the Indian government has been involved for sure, but there are much more egregious governments that are engaged on Canadian soil doing terrible terrorist activities to diaspora communities.
How can we say that the Indian government, sorry, I'm intruding. How can you say that the Indian government is involved for sure? We don't even have, we have intelligence, but no evidentiary proof. So we can't make that leap of faith.
Okay, listen, the leap of faith. I think intelligence suggests, and various open source data points, academic research papers will back this up, that the Indian government is certainly being involved with diaspora politics in our country, also doing influence operations. As to whether or not they're directly involved with the murder of Nijjar, that is going to come out finally when the RCMP.
You can't hang people and countries on the back of suggestions, viewers. That is a bit licentious.
I agree.
Yeah. So hang on, just a minute. Now, given this, Dr. Ranganathan and Mr. Iyer Mitra, let me just bring you both into this from an Indian perspective. Dr. Ranganathan, should we just basically wrap up this entire investigation? I mean, what sense is it making?
It's making as much sense as Justin Trudeau normally does. No, good evening, Rahul, and wishing your viewers and everyone on the panel a very happy Diwali. And I'm the layman out here. There are 3 experts on your panel, so but I think that's advantageous to me because I can get away by saying all sorts of things that sometimes do not make sense to experts. But let me say this bluntly: Canada is the new Pakistan. Now, it may hurt people's sentiments for me saying so, but there is an element of truth to it. First of all, ironical that we possibly might have currently better relations with China than we have with Canada. You know what's going on. But the reason why I say this, Canada is the new Pakistan, is that yes, we've had crests and troughs with relationships with foreign countries. Yeah, it depends on the governments that come on board. For example, India's relationship with Republicans is now generally better than it is with Democrats, so on and so forth, roughly Labour, Conservative, so on and so forth. But in Pakistan, whatever may be the party in power or the opposition, both of them hate us equally. And you see what Canada is going towards. So ignoring the so-called liberals and, you have Jagmeet and Trudeau and their silliness aside, or whatever you may call it, you have recently the conservatives cancelling the Diwali party. So I think something much more macabre and serious is going on there. Trudeau has kind of vitiated the atmosphere to such an extent that even the opposition is now, going against what common sense would prevail. And the common sense tells you that if there is a Canadian terrorist, I'm not calling Nijjar a Khalistani terrorist, by the way, he's a Canadian citizen, he's a Canadian terrorist. Yeah. We did not put that fellow on a no-fly zone. We did not, say that this guy is head of a terror organization. He himself did. You had lookout notices. You had that guy was a terrorist. It
was denied citizenship 3 times.
Denied citizenship. That is number 1. Point number 2, and I'm afraid, of course, I'm speaking metaphorically. The only thing that's been slapped more than Trudeau, metaphorically, is a wrestler's upper thigh. I mean, here is Trudeau himself admitting that he lacked complete knowledge, as well as the only credible source that he had was some wishy-washy intelligence to implicate India. And now you have Canadian ministries leaking so-called intelligent reports to newspapers like Washington Post. The whole thing is a complete mess. And I agree with Daniel, the first up, because he said, even if India had a hand in it, even if, number 1, if a foreign terrorist, Osama, can be killed on foreign soil and Trudeau congratulate America for it. If a foreign terrorist, Nasrallah, can be killed on foreign soil and everyone congratulate Netanyahu for it, why on earth can't India do the same thing? Take care of foreign terrorists on foreign soil. But even if we did not, or we did, that's aside. The point of the matter is Canada was a friendly nation. Canada could have pulled us aside and said, look, this is what is going on, and can we sit together and sort this matter out? Now, obviously, the 3% Sikh population in Canada has taken the fancy, and Trudeau feels that in many swing constituencies, even 100 or 200 votes are going to swing it either way. That is the nub, Rahul. It is just domestic politics.
And the worst thing is, viewers, it's the Hindu who's getting squeezed in Canada. We've just had Pierre Poilievre saying that, look, I'm not going to host the annual Diwali party or attend it or what have you. And that's a tradition that has been going on for 2 decades. Yeah. So, Mr. Iyer Mitra, let me just bring you in. Communication strategy. Can you break this down for our viewers? Why does a deputy foreign minister and the NSA of Trudeau's government embark upon a communication strategy? What's going on here?
So there are 2 timelines here, Rahul, that are very important. First, the story to the Washington Post was leaked before the meeting with Doval, right? So they needed a communication strategy that, absent any evidence, would spin a narrative to substitute for the absence of evidence. This was number 1. Number 2, remember how the request to come to India was also treated. They, on the 8th of October morning, They contacted the Indian embassy and said, you have 5 hours to give us visas. We need to come to Delhi. No agenda provided. If they had assume, normally it takes a week for government visas. Had they come to Delhi, they did not have an agenda. They had no meeting points. Basically, everybody in Delhi, from the National Security Advisor to the Foreign Minister, would then have to rearrange their schedule to meet them, which would have been impossible. And they would have said, well, we came to Delhi and nobody spoke to us, right? Now, when you put all three in sequence, the leaking of the story before the request to meet Doval, before the request to come to India, then the short notice about the visa, and finally the backup plan if the visa had been given, you see that this is a string of basic insecurity about whatever intel or evidence you have. Clearly, you do not have evidence. Because in spite of all the stories that have been leaked, how is it that no evidence has been leaked, Rahul? How is it that it's all insinuations? The person who calls up the Deputy Prime Minister is Jerry Shee. Now, we all know Jerry Shee. He's quite a pathological freak show in this general scheme of things. Now, what ends up happening is he calls up and asks David Morrison, is it Amit Shah? And he says, yes, it is. So words were literally, he's admitting words were put by the Washington Post, Jerry Shee, into this man's mouth. The third thing is very important, and this is the most important timeline out here. Justin Trudeau, just a few days back, said that anybody who leaks the details of the Chinese interference dossier are criminals who will be prosecuted. And yet, without following declassification procedures just a week prior, without any notification on the reduction of the classification category, Ms. Druin and Mr. Morrison have gone and leaked a story to the Washington Post, which means, as per their own Prime Minister's statement, these two need to be prosecuted. Right? Yeah. And yet, we now see what kind of a rule of law, Trudeau's favorite words, we're a rule of law country, Canada is, because these rules are selectively applied. If Pierre Poilievre talks about the India dossier, he will be thrown in jail. But Natalie Druin or David Morrison talk about the India dossier, they will not. Quite the contrary, they continue to stay in cabinet. You see? So this is, if you put the two timelines together, you understand? Yeah. This is all coming through as a completely politically manipulated game, which doesn't have anything going for it, because unlike the Americans who put out evidence, they have not. Third, and sorry, I know I've taken up too much of your time. No, that's fine. Importantly, when the RCMP's head, Duhem, I think his name is, was interviewed by CTV or CBC yesterday or day before, he said the Nijjar case is separate and the Indian foreign interference case is separate. Oh. He literally said that there is no connection between the two. Wow. So now, Indian foreign interference has, by the RCMP itself, been delinked from the Nijjar murder case.
So then what's all this fuss about, viewers?
I don't know.
Well, it's clear. It's clear that, it is about political grandstanding. They always say, viewers, patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. We all know this. And I don't think I need to paint a very vivid picture of who the scoundrel is. We know who it is, viewers. I need to move on, because I think this matter now, if Trudeau had any self-respect, he would say, look, I think I overextended myself. This matter is over. He'll come here and smoke the peace pipe with Prime Minister Modi, if he had any self-respect. But I think, viewers, at the end of the day, it's the voters of Canada that are going to put him in his place. And we're all going to wait with glee for that. Not to say that the other side is going to be any more charitable, but, viewers, it'll just be comeuppance. A sense of Schadenfreude, let me put it that way. Let's move on, viewers, because it is Diwali after all. It is Diwali after all, viewers, and Ayodhya is hosting its first Diwali since the consecration of the Ram temple earlier this January. The celebrations were unlike any seen in previous years. The government aims to break last year's Guinness World Record by lighting 28 lakh diyas along the banks of the Saryu River. That's, viewers, 2.8 million diyas. A team of 30 led by Guinness World Records consultant Nischal Barot has already begun the process of counting the diyas using drones across 55 ghats. In an eco-friendly initiative, the Animal Husbandry Department of the UP government has lit 150,000 Gau Deepak, a gesture presented to Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. Those are the pictures there, viewers. It's absolutely spectacular. Special lamps designed to minimize soot and pollution are being used at the Ram temple to protect its structure, because this is the first time that Ram Lalla, who's Virajman, in 500 years, will get to partake in this celebration. Over 30,000 volunteers assisted in decorating the ghats, which will be adorned with flowers and lights, conveying a message of environmental awareness. To bring Hindus of all stripes together, cultural performances showcased artists representing 6 countries: Myanmar, Nepal, Thailand, Malaysia, Cambodia and Indonesia, as well as a Ram Leela presentation from Uttarakhand. The Chief Minister used the opportunity to send a message to Hindus of all stripes that they must unite under the umbrella of an all-embracing Sanatana Dharma. And to understand really the significance of today, we're going across to Amish Tripathi, who needs no introduction. He is a celebrated author, viewers. He has written a large number of books on Indian mythology. He has reinterpreted Indian mythology for all of us. And viewers, fundamentally, he is an individual who can actually talk about the significance of today. Why, viewers? Because Mr. Tripathi also grew up in Kashi, where, viewers, the Lord there is awaiting a Diwali such as this. That matter, as you know, viewers, the Krishna Janambhumi matter, as well as, of course, the Gyanvapi mosque issue, tied up in the court. So Mathura, Kashi, all waiting for their day to celebrate a Diwali of the Ram Mandir Wali kind, which is historical and epical. Let's go across to Mr. Amish Tripathi. I've introduced him at length to you, viewers. Thank you, Mr. Tripathi, for joining us. First of all, of course, happy Diwali to you and your family, and through you, of course, also to all our viewers. Now, why is Diwali Ram Mandir Wali, as it's being called, historic, and what is the message going out from Ayodhya today to all of India?
Firstly, Rahul, Diwali ki shubhkamnaएं to you, to all your viewers.
Thank you.
From my family and me. This is a very, very important occasion. It hasn't happened in, 500 years now. The Honorable Prime Minister, called the Pran Pratishtha of the Ram Janambhumi temple, which had happened earlier this year, as the second Diwali. And I'd had the honor of actually being there. And the sheer devotion, pride of praying out there and receiving the blessings of Ram Lalla, you can't imagine what it feels. And why is this so important? We are a people who refuse to forget. We are the only pre-Bronze Age culture that is still alive. The original temple there was destroyed by Mir Baqi, Babur's general, nearly 500 years ago. There are various examples that I can give you of how we as a people refuse to forget. Let me tell you one specific one that we'd actually recorded in a documentary we'd made on the Ram Janambhumi temple. Do you know that a British visitor had recorded that when he'd come to what was the Babri structure there, for centuries, millions of Indians had been doing parikrama around the structure, because that's where the temple used to be. And so many millions had been doing it for so long that the ground had sunk out there. And this is what that British traveler described in the 19th century. That itself shows the depth of memory. We will refuse to forget. And what is civilization except the struggle of remembering? To quote Milan Kundera, the struggle of remembering against forgetting. That's why we are still around. We refuse to forget.
So today is about reclaiming our dharmic civilization, ridding it of a kind of colonial malaise, let's put it that way. Okay, so let me ask you this other question because it's an important one. And this puja is being conducted in the backdrop of a political effort to unite Hindus. It was thought that the mission to return Ram to his Janambhumi would have served as the glue. It hasn't. Why has this not taken place?
Look, I mean, I'm not going to get into politics and what elections play, but what I would advise, Rahul, is a civilization that has been around since the Bronze Age. Don't judge the impact of things by a few years, by elections over a few months. That's not how civilizations move. Civilizations move at a much slower pace. If you can imagine where we were not just 500 years ago, but just 100 years ago, just 50 years ago. I myself remember, I'm 50 years old, when I prayed for the first time at the temple, and that was when actually there was just a chachar out there.
Yeah.
One had to take a lot of security permissions to go out there. I'd gone and prayed. I remember my parents, we were crying actually out there because Ram Lalla was there. There was just a plastic.
He was a hostage to politics. I mean, let's be honest.
And,
And you had to go through this sort of bunch of turnstiles and look like you were in Guantanamo Bay.
And the Pandit out there, we were sitting and chatting with him, and my father, my mother, he was crying कि भाई बारिश होती है, राम लल्ला भीग जाते हैं, हम कुछ नहीं कर पाते, लानत है हम पे. And that was the state we were in. Don't judge things by a few months or a few years. A civilization moves a lot more slowly. We are a civilization. We're not a mere nation. We're a civilization.
Well, that's very well put. Now, many have also, look, I mean, I'm sorry because today again you've had people who've sort of raised an eyebrow or two and criticized the involvement of the state in this celebration, taking it to mean the endorsement of the superiority of a faith and the desecration of secularism. In its defense, the BJP has argued that Ram belongs to all. He's a marker of our civilization. What's your response to some of these individuals who are perhaps raising these doubts?
Firstly, and the answer was there in your question itself. Lord Ram belongs to all. One of the most beautiful lines that I heard was from K.K. Mohammed Saab, a legendary archaeologist whose work actually helped prove the case of the existence of a Lord Ram temple, which Babur destroyed. And K.K. Mohammed Saab had said so beautifully to me while we were recording the documentary that Babur was a foreigner. He was from Uzbekistan. What do I have to do with him? I'm an Indian. Lord Ram is mine. And that is, to me, a true representation of pluralism and secularism. Secondly, on your point of the state being involved, I think this is a little disingenuous. I'm sure, many of your viewers know the only religion which is not allowed to manage its own worship place is actually the religion of Hinduism. All other religions have the right to manage their own worship places. Many may not know this. Our temples are actually run by the state. The properties are appropriated by the state. This is not allowed on a Christian church or a Muslim mosque or a Sikh Gurudwara in India. The state has legally appropriated billions of dollars from British times, and unfortunately this law wasn't changed even post-independence. So if the state invests a bit in our temples, they're only returning a tiny fraction, the state, it's only returning a tiny fraction of what it has already appropriated. And I've argued for the fact that just like other religions have the right to run their own worship places, Hindus must have that right too.
Well, Amish Tripathi, as always, very clear in your thinking. Thank you very much for putting into context, viewers, all that we're seeing on our screens. Time for us to move on. We're going to stick with the theme of Diwali and how it is being celebrated and how we are being told to celebrate it in newspaper after newspaper and on hoarding after hoarding and in press conference after press conference. The AAP government in the capital has beseeched the citizens to not burst crackers. The advertisement is direct and it says, and let me quote it, "Cracker-free Diwali, clean air and green Delhi for all of us," unquote. The linkage is very clear. the point is also being driven home personally by AAP ministers. This is what Gopal Rai, Delhi Environment Minister, had to say, and I quote him: "We appeal to the people of Delhi to not burst firecrackers this Diwali. It is every individual's responsibility to avoid contributing to this pollution. We must celebrate a cracker-free Diwali to ensure clean air," unquote. While it is true, viewers, that lighting crackers on Diwali day causes a massive spike in toxicity, it's all been recorded, it is equally true that their impact abates in 24 hours. So this show doesn't purport to endorse the bursting of crackers. The hard facts establish that the order to ban crackers is a largely expedient political exercise high on optics. An IIT Delhi study as recent as 2022, it's 2 years ago, concluded that Delhi itself is not the culprit, that Diwali rather is not the culprit, turning Delhi into a gas chamber. But it is the burning of biomass that is the culprit. It is open construction. It is, viewers, the use of fuel in gensets and also in cars. This is what the IIT Delhi study said, and let me quote it. The researchers have found that biomass burning related emissions rise steeply in the days following Diwali, with average levels almost rising by an order of around 2 compared to the pre-Diwali concentration, unquote. In fact, the hard facts suggest, and I always bring you these hard facts so you can get closer to the truth and separate the wheat from the chaff. The hard facts suggest that Delhi's air is toxic all year round. And in some months, the average AQI tops the figures for Diwali. In fact, in 2023, last year, pollution decreased on Diwali day, and that's the number, viewers. You can see it on your screens. 10th January 2023, it was 471. There you can see it on the extreme left of your screens, viewers. That's January 2023. It's 471. 18th Feb 2023, 350. 17th May, 300. 1st of August, it comes down to 60 because of the monsoons and the favorable wind patterns. It continues into September, that favorable weather. Begins Parali or stubble burning season, it goes back to 300. You can see that 312, just zooms back up, viewers. 3rd November 2023, Diwali, 494, almost the same as January. But it fell, viewers. When Diwali hit, it actually falls on Diwali. 13th November, it's back up to 469 after Diwali, that is. 25th November, 395, almost 400. 23rd December, 422. So viewers, Diwali is not the lead contributor. The fact that Diwali crackers don't cause the Yamuna to froth over with ammonia all year round and a cocktail of toxins. The crackers aren't responsible for farmers burning stubble and for the laxity on part of the city administration and its related agencies for not doing enough year after year to protect the people of Delhi from harm. The BJP says this is about the AAP being against Hinduism. Is that the case? Let's open this up. Dr. Ranganathan is here with us. Akashdeep Muni, Dr. Muni is also here with us. Dr. Ranganathan, first over to you. What do you make of this correlation? Let's not burn crackers on the... Look, I'm not advocating for crackers, and I don't think even you are. I'm quite certain that you also are aware that yes, it does spike the pollution levels. We don't want to create any distress amongst people, but to single out Diwali, it appears to me that Diwali is being made a convenient scapegoat. You're free to disagree.
Undoubtedly, Rahul. Look, there are two issues here. Let me delve briefly into them one by one. Only in India can all pillars of our democracy, legislature, executive, judiciary, and the media step aside and watch as firecrackers are banned on Diwali, but 35 million tons of stubble is happily burned during the same month, right next to Delhi, 17,000 square kilometers of it, for a month on fire. Only in India can thousands of trees can be cut during Christmas, or fireworks allowed during New Year celebrations, or when Kejriwal comes out on bail, because apparently only Diwali is increasing the carbon footprint and contributing to pollution. The rest are purifying the environment, is it? But away from the hypocrisy, there is another important issue that needs to be addressed scientifically. Why are firecrackers allowed to be burst in the open at all? Number one, science proves that pollution caused by firecrackers is shockingly harmful. What results from of fireworks celebrations are alarmingly toxic materials like arsenic, mercury, cadmium, unreacted sulfur, lead, chromium, besides ozone, a greenhouse gas, and percolate that can severely affect the functioning of thyroid. I have said this before and I repeat, Rahul, firecrackers are immensely harmful, and like the stubble burning farmers, you have no right to expose others to them. Number two, common sense tells you that if millions of people burst firecrackers in a limited period of time, it will produce harmful gases. Why do you want to savor joy at the cost of others? You want to burst firecrackers? Please go right ahead, provided you are by your own, inside your house, behind closed doors, away from your near and dear ones. So light up a Fuljadi PM 2.5 10,390 mcg per meter cube, or a snake PM 2.5 64,500 mcg per meter cube, or Hazar Ki Ladi PM 2.5 38,540 mcg per meter cube, or a chakri inside your closed house. You want to call this a celebration? Fair enough. It's your right, your money, your life. But please don't celebrate at the cost of others. When will we learn from what science tells us? When will we do a cost-benefit analysis of our religious and cultural practices? Pure luck that the ozone layer depleting chlorofluorocarbons weren't considered Holy Communion, or they would never have been banned. We probably would have rationalized the resulting spate of skin cancers as a just punishment from God for our sins. And as for those who say, "Arey, grin and bear this firecracker pollution on Diwali, it's only for a day, so what if you have asthma?" Well, doesn't stubble burning last only for a month? Why then the need to ban it? Suffer for that month and forget about it afterwards. Enjoy the rest of year's pollution that is free from its stubble burning component. Think of the poor farmers who cannot afford other means to make the farmland cultivable again, and for whom their land is their religion. But you don't. You want stubble burning banned, isn't it? Finally, the rights of an individual to run or ruin his life are sacrosanct, but they cannot infringe, Rahul, on the rights of another individual. The singular purpose of a rational, kind, intelligent, conscientious society is to make sure of this. Anything else, and it is social Darwinism, I'm afraid.
Absolutely. I completely second that. And Dr. Muni, I have to ask you this. I mean, maybe the advertisement should say, and forgive me, sir, I am being openly political here because I see this as a political issue first. This business of saying ban the firecrackers, you're just finding an excuse. You know, a donkey on which you're pinning a tail in the blind. So I'm going to say, aap free Diwali, clean air and green Delhi for all of us. Maybe that's what we need to say. Because I'm sorry, you've seen the evidence, it's on your screens. Why are you flogging the wrong horse here, or a dead horse?
Okay, Rahulji, I'll be replying to you point by point.
Please.
First of all, this idea that stubble burning is the reason behind pollution in Delhi and it is Punjab who is doing it. I must quote the Honorable Agricultural Minister of India, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, who said that stubble burning dropped to a very high extent, more in Punjab and percentage than other states like Haryana. He quoted Haryana and Punjab. This is, I'm quoting the Bharatiya Janata Party Agriculture Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan. So stubble burning this time came down, while Haryana and Uttar Pradesh burned stubble as much as they can. Second point. Now coming back to as per Indian Agriculture Research Institute, stubble burning in this month, October, till yesterday was 1866 in Punjab. In 2022, this number was 8,000 for the same month, same day. So I'm quoting the Indian Agriculture Research Institute, has come down heavily. Now third point, so stubble burning is not the reason behind pollution this time. If it's the reason, it is a smaller reason, not a heavier reason.
Oh, okay.
It has come down heavily. Second point. Now what the Bharatiya Janata Party says, I must quote, Tajinder Bagga says, and Kapil Mishra says, and Delhi BJP says, that when they come into power, they will lift cracker ban, and whosoever bans cracker is Aurangzeb. Now the Honorable Supreme Court says that how can we allow firecrackers, even they are green crackers? Haven't you seen the pollution in Delhi?
Yes.
The Honorable Supreme Court says, Supreme Court says to Manoj Tiwari in his petition.
You believe in the Supreme Court, right?
Hear his plea.
Dr.
So
Muni, you believe?
The Honorable Supreme Court is Aurangzeb.
Okay. Aurangzeb.
No.
So 1 second, just hold it. On this point of the Supreme, you've quoted the Supreme Court. Will you also quote this quote of the Supreme Court? quote, mere eyewash, unquote. Supreme Court wraps Punjab, Haryana over stubble burning. A bench of Justice Abhay S. Okha, Justice A. Amanullah, Justice A.G. Masi said the Punjab and Haryana government's efforts to stamp out farm fires is mere eyewash. The Supreme Court grilled the central and Punjab and Haryana governments on Wednesday. Which Wednesday is this, viewers? October 23rd. How many days ago is that, viewers? A week.
Sir,
And this gentleman, no, 1 second, when it suited him, he didn't quote the Supreme Court. He quoted the Union Minister, and when it's hang on. When it suited him, he okay. Now hang on. I'm not finished. Please. And I'm quoting NDTV, sir, that you watch and you swear by. So let me also now elaborate on what the Supreme Court has also said. Stubble burning, viewers, violates fundamental right to pollution-free environment. I'm not saying this live law, quoting the Supreme Court. When, viewers? 23rd 10 2024, 7 days ago. 7 days ago. Why is the Supreme Court talking about stubble burning if it's not an issue, viewers? Dr. Ranganathan, yes, you've raised your hand. Yeah.
Rahul, at the outset, for what I'm going to say right now, I want to clarify that you or your channel are not responsible for what I'm going to say. Bear with me.
Sir, will I lose my head?
No, I'm clarifying it at the outset.
Okay.
Because last year the Supreme Court said even if there is one farm fire,
that's right,
we will haul up the Chief Minister of Punjab and Haryana or all their administrative heads. Last year there were 70,000 farm fires, and Dr. Muni is being very specious out here, I'm afraid. Just like Diwali doesn't fall on the same day every year, farm fire, that period is also shifting. There is a shift of 10 to 15 days. So even if there are very less farm fires right now, the Punjab farmers will make it up. For example, last year there were 70,000 farm fires. But this is what I'm going to say. I want the Chief Justice of India impeached for the contempt of the Supreme Court. I want him impeached.
So Dr. Ranganathan, obviously, those are very, very extreme sentiments, but not very extreme from what I mentioned. And I'll tell you when, viewers, on the 25th October, 2 days after the Supreme Court, because the Chief Justice of India says, I've stopped my morning walks due to pollution. And this is what I said. The CGI has halted his morning walks because it is a health hazard given Delhi's toxic air quality. Many Indians don't have that option. Today, lakhs will be out pushing handcarts, driving cycle rickshaws, doing hard labor to earn a few scraps at great risk to their overwhelmed lungs. The CGI's symbolic measure will admittedly spark water cooler conversations in offices, but it is a kind of signaling we don't need. His own time in office and that of his predecessors has seen the SC failing to take punitive action against government officials who failed to implement orders passed by the top court. Name one environment minister, chief minister indicted specifically by any court. This, viewers, was my tweet. I may not have called for the impeachment, but I'm certainly not here to flatter the Chief Justice of India. Unlike Dr. Muni, who is quoting the Chief Justice of India and the Supreme Court when it suits him. And then that, viewers, that tells you something. And I'm disappointed, Dr. Muni, because, you should know now, you've been so often on this show that the hard facts here pierce the thickest carapace. I know you've got a thick skin now, being on TV shows, etc. But you see, the hard fact comes to you with the precision of a crossbow diamond-tipped arrow. And it bursts the carapace open and you have been exposed.
And he's taken the Urta Tir himself.
And look, we can fool all the people all the time, some of the people all the time, whatever it is, but not all the people all the time. I rest my case, viewers. Akashdeep Muni says we are doing everything in our capacity. Everyone else is to blame. Fair enough, viewers. You're to blame. All the other governments are to blame. The AAP is not to blame. Fair enough, viewers. If that's what you think, in 2 months, we'll know what your opinion is. I'll leave it at this. Though a very valiant attempt, I have to say, by Dr. Muni to present his case. I can't take that away from him. We've had a balanced debate, viewers. It went slightly towards the courts, but the courts also need to be asked questions. I'll leave it at this. Thank you very much.
tell me something. Like, I can see the off-screen camaraderie between the two of you. It's great. Vidya constantly bullying him. I've been seeing that.
Really?
कभी नहीं, कभी नहीं. इनके मुंह से एक शब्द नहीं निकलता.
इनकी आंखें बहुत कुछ बता रही है.
रो रहा हूँ अंदर ही.
It's great fun, yeah. And I have to say he's a sport.
He is.
So I love ribbing him.
देखो ना कैसे बैठी है एकदम. कौन है तू? क्या? कहाँ से आ गया? एकदम. हाँ.
But how long did it take to break ice, or was it like easy? You got together
Instantly.
Instantly.
Yeah.
Or even before we worked with each other. No, genuinely, we met at an award function, and I'll never forget. I've not met him, ever.
कभी नहीं मिली.
Yeah. And my manager told me, my niece is a big fan of Kartik Aaryan.
Right.
She loves Sonu ki sweetie. So, अगर कार्तिक मिले तो प्लीज एक फोटो या कुछ. मैंने सीधे ऐसे कार्तिक हाय लिसन माय मैनेजर्स niece is a big fan of yours, can you please do a bite? And it's like I'd known him from, and then I realized, I said,
I didn't even tell you hello.
I was just, I commanded him. So then I said, listen, and then I told him that I liked him in the film and everything. Otherwise, I guess it's his, it's the way he is.
Yeah,
right?
the vibe.
You feel like you know him.
Yeah.
So it was...
It was instant.
Yeah.
There was nothing. सीधा यही था. जैसा था यही था.
But that's great, no? That's great.
lovely.
It works
That's
for
lovely.
the dynamic of your character also, I think, somehow. Monjulika and Hilba.
वो तो ऐसा है.
Okay. But Karthik, let's go back to Bhool Bhulaiya 2. Okay.
Okay.
And the film had released, and we know it was sort of this box office disruptor. Films were not working at that time, and that sort of really changed the game and set a precedent like nothing. I was speaking to Anis sir recently, like 3-4 days back, and he said that Karthik was of course always popular, but I think Bhool Bhulaiya sort of changed the image that he had.
Yeah.
He was a star now. Do you also agree with that sentiment? Do you think the industry's perception in general with you has also changed?
I think, of course, with bigger numbers, of course, a lot of things change. Before that, I had done Sonu Titu or Pati Patni or Luka Chupi. They also did wonders for me as an actor or as a commercial actor. In if you talk about just numbers.
Sure.
So that I think a lot of it changed after Sonu Ke Titu Ki Sweetie for me personally. Then Bhool Bhulaiya 2, what it did was it just cemented the number game for me in a way. So I'm really thankful to this film, to the entire team, and the way it released at that point of time when no other film was actually film से ज़्यादा मुझे लग रहा था यहाँ पे एक बहुत बड़ा एक मेंटली सबके दिमाग में ये चल रहा था हिंदी फिल्म्स चल नहीं रही. ये या तो साउथ की फिल्म चल रही है या तो हॉलीवुड फिल्म चल रही है, लेकिन एक हिंदी फिल्म यहाँ चल नहीं रही थी. ऐसा बहुत आर्टिकल्स आ रहे थे इस बारे में, चीजें हो रही थी. और भूल भुलैया 2 केम एट दैट पॉइंट. इनफैक्ट उस टाइम कोविड के चलते लॉकडाउन और वो सब भी बहुत हो रखा था. एंड वी जस्ट केम आउट ऑफ इट एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. फॉर द फिल्म टू डू दैट नंबर्स, आई थिंक वो थोड़ा सा I think it changed the game for me. It changed personally. मेरे लिए बहुत चीजें भूल भुलैया की वजह से आई है, and it's really special and it's very close to me, this entire franchise.
No, I was just telling her it's been 17 years, but she still looks the same, right? In Amir Ji Suma 3.2 as well.
मतलब इन्होंने काम बहुत जल्दी चालू किया करना. इसलिए
तभी शूट कर लिया था.
पैदा होते ही भूल भुलैया कर लिया.
I don't think that's true, but it's still nice to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely telling you.
Oh, thank you.
I'll show you. I'll put. Thank you so much. No, but so yesterday also we saw the performances live. It was great to watch it. There was this moment.
Yes.
And you very gracefully handled it. Madhuri ma'am also played along pretty well, very well. On set, when you were shooting for the song, and I heard that you shot it over a span of around 5 days.
Yes.
Yeah. Did she give you any kind of inputs while performing?
She did. There was, for example, see, I had rehearsed the song with Chinny Master's assistants and then they change. Sometimes things change on set, because they suddenly feel that, oh, but we want to make this bigger, we want to keep the camera right up, so then we want to chuck something. Lots of changes happen on set like that. So I would get like, oh my god, they're going to change this step, and I'm fixated in my head. So I remember there was a step where I was like, no, I won't get this, and then when it was changed, she actually taught me an easy way to do it. So I think I've been saying this to people, that she's always been very generous. Right from the time we stepped on set together, I think she's just been amazing.
How lovely.
Yeah, I think. And, yesterday, the way she played along, it was just...
Amid the ongoing tensions between the two countries, Nathalie Drouin, the NSA to Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada, has made a shocking confession. NSA Nathalie Drouin has claimed that it was a strategic decision to leak information against India to the Washington Post, and she, along with Deputy Foreign Minister of Canada David Morrison, leaked that information. The leak took place even before the Canadian police publicly alleged that their probe into the murder of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar revealed links between agents of the Indian government and homicides and violent acts in Canada. She also says that she did not require Trudeau's authorization for leaking that information. Listen in as she speaks to the committee.
Deputy Minister Morrison and I spoke to the Washington Post on background late Sunday afternoon, October 13. We provided non-classified information on the action we had taken to cooperate with India and explained how the evidence showed links to the government of India conducting illegal activities against Canadians, including threats to their lives. The government of India has, from the beginning, accused Canada of engaging in a politically motivated investigation and using the Canadian media to further this. This is clearly not the case. However, we were prepared for this accusation to resurface. Therefore, we made a strategic decision to engage a respected international news outlet that had already published on the subject to ensure the record was straight and that our side of the story would be widely heard. Deputy.
All right, Siddharth Mishra has been tracking that story for us. He joins me on the phone line with more input. Siddharth, before we dive into the larger messaging behind this, important to also share what is the message going out and jog our memories a bit and refer to what Washington Post had actually reported in the first place.
Well, it perhaps tells two things. That one, that there is a classified information which was leaked, sensitive information which was leaked to the American press. It shows that how desperate Trudeau government is to implicate India and the senior Indian officials with this case. And the second is that that there has not been any action against these two senior officials of the Trudeau government. This is an ongoing investigation. The charge sheet has still not been filed in the case. There is no evidence which has been put forth by RCMP. Not even a shred of evidence has been shared with the government of India. Despite that, such names are being thrown in public. Deliberate attempts have been made so that the Indian officer's image can get maligned. And perhaps that is what the government of Canada is doing at this point in time. Now, this is the first-hand confession from the NSA and the Deputy Foreign Minister. And also, interestingly, Akanksha, there is a contradiction in the statements given by both these senior officials. NSA has to say that she did not divulge the detailed leaked info. Deputy Foreign Minister said that journalists from the Washington Post called him and asked him that is that the same person? So he confirmed that yes, he is the same person. Perhaps that's the conversation he had with the journalist, and that was how Home Minister Amit Shah's name was given to the Washington Post.
Right.
Now, the Indian government should protest strongly and perhaps put pressure on the Canada on what basis the Home Minister's name is being taken by the Canadian officials and what evidence they have to implicate him directly in the case and to malign his reputation.
So whether it is the Trudeau government or even RCMP, which says that they have credible evidence to back these claims, the fact of the matter remains that none of this has been followed up via...
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Happy Diwali to all those who are celebrating. We begin with more fireworks between India and Canada. Now they're targeting India's Home Minister, saying that he ordered attacks on Khalistanis in Canada. Meanwhile, in the US, Donald Trump is training guns on Europe. He's threatening a tariff war. Washington Post is losing subscribers and staff after owner Jeff Bezos stopped the paper from endorsing Kamala Harris. And is Joe Biden helping Trump? That's the big headline in this election, gaffes and garbage. We'll bring you up to speed with the latest controversy. In the Ukraine war, Russia has captured a key city as it also holds nuclear drills. In India, a Dhanteras surprise from the Reserve Bank. More than 100 tons of gold stored in London has been brought back home. It's a happy Diwali for Reddit too. The social media platform has made a profit for the first time in 19 years. In Guinea, the ruling junta has banned more than 50 political parties. We'll also tell you about the biggest cheese heist in the world and what's the Vikram Samvat, the Hindu calendar that has given us 2 days of Diwali this time instead of one. All this and more coming up. The headlines first.